Hello and welcome to another episode of the Golden Hour Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Mays, and today's guest is Josh Yeo from the YouTube channel Make Art Now. Now, this isn't the first time that I've interviewed Josh. We actually have a previous recorded episode that we posted about a year and a half ago on the Polar Pro channel. I'll link that down in the description below. In that previous conversation, we talk about how Josh started his journey in Hollywood as a struggling actor, as well as how he built a career doing real estate cinematography on a really crazy high level. We're talking multi-million-dollar houses in Hollywood and Beverly Hills, and then how he transitioned into being a YouTuber. It's now been essentially a year and a half since that conversation, and a lot has changed for Josh. He's now sitting at almost 400,000 subscribers on YouTube and is one of the kind of top tier filmmaker related YouTubers on the platform right now. His newest film, Anamorphia 2, really made a splash in the industry, and I think a lot of people took notice of Josh. He has really kind of become the guy on YouTube for this filmmaking story-based thing. So it was interesting to talk to him today about his journey on YouTube, his struggles with it, and what he sees himself doing moving forward, maybe even getting out of the gear space altogether. And then we talk about his new product, the Orbit, which has raised over $200,000 on Kickstarter. So without any further ado, let's listen in on this conversation with Josh Yeo. So Josh and I have known each other for 2 years now, I believe. I think it was 2 years ago we met at the Sony A6400 event. Is that right?
Probably, actually, yeah. I think that sounds about right. I think because that was the first event that I think I went to with my channel.
Yeah, I think that was also when you were posting your films and stuff, and you were doing some gear stuff, but I think you had 50,000 subs at the time. And then we met, and then literally within 3 or 4 months, you like cracked right past 100 and just started growing from there. And it's just been a wild ride for you these last 2 years.
Except for the last 2 months, my numbers have been like chilling.
Is that right?
It's so funny. Like doing Anamorphia totally just killed all of my momentum and numbers. Yeah. But like it was really good for my soul and for my creativity. But it's just so funny how YouTube rewards and punishes like opposite of what you would think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a game. This isn't Hollywood. This isn't like filmmaking. This isn't storytelling. It's all about playing a video game, which is YouTube.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I guess, I mean, a part of me cares a little bit because like I think we all want to win, you know?
Yeah.
But then another a big part of me just doesn't give a like why would I care? Why, like you want more subscribers? Like you already have 300,000. You want more? I've been having a lot of those thoughts lately because it's like part of me, sometimes I feel like I self-sabotage the channel to follow the things that I want to follow. Yeah. And then like I lose momentum and then I'm like, I got to start all over. I got to do like product videos now to like get the momentum again. And then I look back, I'm like, all I'm doing is selling products for other companies. Like that's all I'm doing.
Yes. We've talked about this, and that's one of the reasons why I want to have you on this podcast is because you've kind of had this realization that essentially you, along with all of these other gear reviewers, are doing free marketing for these companies. Why are we doing this? I mean, it's a cycle, right? We need content for our channel. So they provide the content, but then, or at least they provide the story of the content. The story is this piece of gear, and then people are obviously interested in it, so they're searching for it. But you just told me like a couple weeks ago, you're like, I'm done with this, man. I'm going to sell my own products.
I mean, I think so. Like, I'm not done with it. Like, I definitely there are certain partners that I love having that make my life easy and like, don't get me wrong, I'm completely grateful for this opportunity. I don't want this to come off like I'm suddenly slapping the hand that feeds. But I think I have kind of earned the ability to like talk about these things and say, after grinding for 3 years, trying to make the best of like product reviews, or I don't even know if you call my videos that. probably more be like product-based experiences, right?
Nice.
And it's weird because like when I come up with these ideas, most of the time my brain is just coming up with some creative way that I want to explore.
Yeah.
And then it actually takes me a really long time to do these videos. I think I think a lot of people think that maybe I pump out a video in 3 days and then I wait around for 3 weeks and then I do another, it takes me 3 days.
Yeah.
In reality, it actually took me all 3 weeks to do that video.
Yeah.
Like working on it every day. And most of the time it's because like what I'm trying to explore with it, it's almost like every video is a thesis for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not just getting the camera and then doing a video like, oh, my thoughts of the day or my first impression. I don't think I've ever done a video like that. And so it takes time to do these thesis videos of like, what is this camera really, really good at? Can I get evidence of that? And then can I spend a week trying to master that and get really, really good with it so that I can show that to the audience, but also I can take that skill that I've acquired with me on my journey, And I think the journey has all kind of been leading up to, I don't see me doing product videos for very much longer. I think I will graduate out of this realm of tech review, product video stuff. I'm sure I'll still do, a couple every now and then when I get excited, but I think the long-term play, that's not really sustainable for me. I think I'll throw myself off the balcony. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's a struggle a lot of creatives face. I know myself included. I mean, that's why I left Indie Mogul.
It's a never-ending stream.
Yeah, it's never ending. Being a creative, you can even have like a good flow and a good like energy and like, hey, this is actually working. I'm having success. I mean, a lot of people from the outside will look at you as a successful person and they may think when they hear this interview, like, what's he thinking? Like, he has all this opportunity, whatever. But as an artist, as a creative,
listen, you're totally right. For the outsider listening in, it comes off very ungrateful. Like I'm not appreciative of this opportunity. You know what I mean? But from my perspective, I have worked so hard and so long grinding away, trying to be like the cutting edge of whatever it is that I can like explore. And at the end of the day, if I'm not getting something out for me, for my soul, for my craft, like what do I care how much product I sold of Sony's camera or DJI's drone or this lens or like at the end, that's just like, there's like a threshold for me to be comfortable with. And I passed that threshold. I think when we first met, when I had 50,000 subscribers, I was like, wow, you can make a living off this. Great. And that was good. Like I still drive the same car. I still kind of more or less make the same amount of money. Like I have a studio space now. So that's a little bit better, and I have a little bit more freedom. Like I don't have like the same constraints, but I'm not like rolling in it and I'm not like changing my ways and I still live in an apartment, you know what I mean?
Well, that's just because you live in LA, but
Yeah, that's true. Probably, if I lived in Tennessee, I'd be in a house.
Well, that's the thing is, I was paying $2,900 for a 3-bedroom apartment in Pasadena and we're paying $2,000 a month for a 5-bedroom house with a yard. 5 bedrooms, 2,500 square feet. It's insane. $2,000 a month. You kidding me? Anyways, people listening to this who don't live in LA or New York, they're like, yeah, that's normal.
I mean, it definitely is I think for my total rent with the studio and my apartment is like $5,500 a month.
Jeez.
So,
yet. I mean, that's normal.
I mean, that's
not bad. You're in a good area.
But that's not bad for LA.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I've lived in the same apartment for the last 12 years.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say you're in a really good spot for that price. That's actually impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you live outside of LA, you're like $5,500 a month. Are you crazy? Just on rent?
Well, it took me living here now for the last 2 months for people to come up to me and be like, dude, you realize you could buy a house, like a $600,000 house for that much that you're paying on your rent? I was like, oh, no, I forgot you could buy houses.
Yeah, right?
I'm so used to renting.
Oh, man.
Anyways, that's a sidebar conversation. But You're totally right, and it's funny. I feel like the listeners of this show are probably sick of hearing it now. But almost every guest that I've had on, including you, Gerald Undone, we had Jesse Driftwood not too long ago as well. We're all kind of going through this same predicament right now, where it's like, okay, we've done the gear thing. Now what? Because like at the end of the day, we're all just trying to make a living and do what we want to do, like be artists, right? So it's interesting. You have to pick your battles. Like, do you want to be a YouTuber and be a successful, YouTuber, or do you want to be
let's
a
be honest.
filmmaker?
The gear gets views. Like that's
Yep.
the only reason why any of us, like occasionally from a company that gives us free stuff, which surprisingly is not all of the companies. Like you would think from the outside, oh, Sony and like they just give you
No.
free stuff, but that's not the case.
Not
Like
the-
a lot of times we're just chasing the views. We're panhandling for views.
The companies that
And,
you want to be giving you free stuff never do. It's always
Right.
like the little like random, accessory manufacturers that send you.
Yeah,
like-
exactly. It's so funny, man. All the small companies, they'll give you the world because like they need it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, so for example, we've talked about this, but I launched my Kickstarter like a week ago,
Yes.
and it's been a little bit over a week ago, maybe 10 days ago. And it has been such an experience for me because it's the first time that I've launched a physical product. I've done a couple other crowdfunding campaigns before, but it's the first time I've launched a physical product with my branding. You know what I mean? Like the last 3 years of building up a channel and really attaching like a dollar sign to like how much money, like how many products am I actually selling?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of like an eye opener for me. I mean, I think the product sells itself. For our listeners that don't know,
Yeah, I mean, let's if we're already on the topic, so let's talk about it. You launched a product. It's called the Orbit, and it's this incredible device that I've never seen before. You showed it to me about 6 months ago when you were still doing CAD drawings of it, which is really exciting, and to see the process and to see the completion of it. It was a huge success. I think it's over $200,000 raised now. Is that right? 278,000, dude. That's amazing. You still have 19 days to go. Your goal was 7,500. You had to know that you were going to at least crack that, right? I don't know the strategy of Kickstarter.
No, that was a little bit of strategy. Like with Kickstarter, if you put the goal ridiculously low, the algorithm, it's funny, everybody has an algorithm. So Kickstarter has their own algorithm, and to game the algorithm, you have to put a ridiculously low amount, and then you have to smash that amount within the first few hours. And so what I did is I actually created a Squarespace website the weekend before.
Okay.
And then when I launched my video, which was on a Friday, kind of explaining the Orbit, and it was actually the video that I used on the Kickstarter, but it was also an episode going into a little bit more depth. I launched that on Friday, and I kind of launched the whole pre-sales. Like you can get in on a super early bird price by locking in some pre-sales. And so what that did is that allowed me to secure people's funds. And I was like, here's the deal. You get $100 off, but I need you to purchase the Orbit in full on day one. So essentially we got like 50 people that ponied up. And so we got their money into, on the Squarespace website, only like $200 of it. And then they went to Kickstarter once we launched. And so within a matter of hours, I had $50,000 pouring right into the campaign. And
that
so
triggers the Kickstarter algorithm to be like, oh, this is, Yeah,
exactly. And then so the goal is that Kickstarter ended up featuring us on the main page.
Perfect.
And they ended up loving the product and just everything that we're about. And so I think it really worked out. Like I'd never done anything like that before. Yeah. So we were kind of like, we still are flying by the seat of our pants, but it's real exciting. And, we definitely, my business partner and I, we had an internal goal of 150,000. Like that was the real goal for us to be like, if we don't raise this, then we're not going to make it. Like, it's just not going to work out. We don't have enough money to make the molds. We don't have enough to buy the material. And we're not even talking about paying ourselves anything. We're just talking about, like, how do we actually build something, pay, $40,000 to develop the app, and, spend another $40,000 or $50,000 on molds, so like,
I'm so not in this world, dude. It's
and
crazy.
You know what? And that's the funny thing, is me neither. Like, I've never done this before. And I think, like, I was just talking to my business partner yesterday. I was like, dude, I never want to do this again. Like, I after this, I'm out.
Yeah.
And like, that's the thing, is I got into it because I wanted that experience. I wanted the accolade of going, like, doing something really challenging and trying to pull and just go all the way. Just go for it.
Well, the product, and we'll get to the actual what the product is in a minute, but one thing that I want to touch on that I think is so important for people to learn and to soak up is the fact that you've built such an incredible fan base of like super fans, is what Pat Flynn would call it. And he was a guest on the show. He wrote a book called Super Fans. And he talks about how, you could try to be like Mr. Beast and get like 70 million views and like, play that game and just have millions of people interested in you to become successful. But at the end of the day, if you have 1,000 people pay you $100 a year, that's a 6-figure income. So just focus on having, like, yes, you can try to get 1 million views, but at the end of the day, you want to have a core fan base of people who are there to support you and to uplift you and to basically buy everything that you would ever make. And I think that's what you see with the pre-sales, as well as the success of this, is that you've built an audience of people who trust you and they want to support you. But it's also a great product too, of course. Like, we're going to talk about the product, and it's something.
Well, I mean, it's still risky. If you think, I was just thinking about this morning, like, part of me, one of the great benefits of being a YouTuber is, like, at my disposal, like, all of the YouTuber friends and pals that I have. Do you know what the accumulated reach is? It's staggering. It's 31 million. I added it all up. 31 awesome. Million people. That's like, just with a phone call. Like, that's people I have on my phone, right?
Yeah.
It's incredible marketing power. And I know that influencers kind of get a bad rep, right? Like, especially, nowadays. But we've never been at this kind of crossroads before, where the individuals, like, it's just me in here. I don't have a whole team. I'm just one guy. Like, and to have that level of kind of marketing prowess at your fingertips is, like, has it ever been like that in history? Other than maybe a movie star? Like, maybe a movie star is going to launch their tequila line. You know what I mean?
Well, it's different because in the film industry, you have all these gatekeepers, that are in charge of that. And you've got, I think it's mind-blowing that like certain celebrities at certain levels don't see the value of this. Like, imagine if you are a movie star for real right now and you're not taking advantage of social media and what you could, like, I don't know, like, just name any big actor. If he just started on TikTok, like, it would blow up and it could turn into its own thing. But I don't know. There are people like, I don't know if Will Smith, I think he's done a pretty good job, but I think it's a little cringy too. So I don't know. But
I mean, The Rock is number one. I mean,
yeah, of
dude,
course.
that guy is just the machine.
Yep.
He, like, nonstop. What a business class. Just watching every single post on his Instagram is a business class in marketing.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I don't follow him, but maybe I should.
Look, it's not the most entertaining stuff, but I mean, if you want a class in, like, how to promote your brand, and, like, he just gives the facts. He's like, okay, Zoa is, like, the new thing we're doing now. And I'm just like, golly, got into the energy drink market too. This guy is killing it.
That's
like,
insane.
we're gonna become like this. I don't know. I think The Rock is gonna be as big as Coca-Cola in like 20 years. You know what I mean? It'd just be like this large enterprise of commercial goods.
Yeah, it's
made
true.
with Dwayne Johnson. You know what I mean?
I mean, imagine if an actor at his level just was like, you know what, I'm going to jump ship, like, go all in on, like, YouTube. Like, if he became a true YouTuber, like a Mr. Beast level, like, it could blow the world by storm. I don't
know. I almost think it wouldn't work. I think there's something charming. Like, I think Mr. Beast works because it feels like
authentic.
Yeah, exactly. It's not well produced. I think part of why my channel doesn't do better actually is because it's so well produced and I spend so much time working things over. I think I'd actually have more success if I just spent a little less time on things and just like pumped them out quicker. You know what I mean?
Well, based on my analysis when I was working with Indie Mogul, and it was nuts for me to go from a channel with 80,000 subs to 1 million overnight and have access to that and to have a team and whatever. Like the success that I saw was marginal, but like at the end of the day, I feel like our niche is just a small niche. There's just not millions of people interested in this. There's more if you go into the photography aspect. There's even more if you kind of dial it down a little bit for beginners and people who are just like semi interested in video or photo. And I think that's why McKinnon was so successful in his early days, is he was doing tutorials and mixing photography with video, not just video stuff.
Oh, I mean, yeah, talk about a masterclass. That guy has definitely set the bar. It's so funny. Like he and I just recently became friends.
Yeah.
Like I had never talked to him. And we just started talking like only maybe a month or two ago. And I feel like for the longest time, my YouTube career has been living in his shadow. You know what I mean? And it's hard. Like you can't escape the gravitational pull of of the comparison game. You know, whether you block it out yourself, it just gets brought up in the comments so often. You know what I mean? It's just like, so
it's not the same.
But I mean, talk about a masterclass. I mean, that guy definitely. I mean, he did it right. He did it right out the gate. You know.
Also, timing was perfect too. He was needed at the time. There wasn't anybody doing what he did, and he really created this new mix of like gear, photography stuff with this kind of personality thing. That
well, you know what though? I think that you're right. I do. Like now we're just totally gossiping. So here are two things. I think number one, that if you tried to copy him and do exactly what he did, now it wouldn't work, right?
Right.
But I also think that he's at the level of artistry that he keeps. If you notice, he keeps reinventing himself, and that's where he really, really excels at. Is just like
he's at his fourth stage now. I feel like, honestly.
Yeah, he just keeps reinventing himself, and that's I mean, that's the game right there. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
Everyone else is playing catch up, and like everyone chases the algorithm views where it's like, oh, somebody pops this video with these keywords and it pops off, it does 1 million views overnight, and then the next week everyone's like putting these same keywords. Like we're all just chasing the wave. So I guess, anyway, well, we were talking about something else before.
Well, I think we should talk about the product. I would like to hear about it, like how you start.
So what I was getting at is that with the product, I was like, part of me doing a Kickstarter, at first I was thinking like, I got this reach of all my pals, right? And I can get all my pals on board and help me push this thing out. And then I had this kind of revelation last week, and I felt a little guilty because I texted a couple of my friends. And I was like real excited because the Kickstarter had just launched, and I was like gearing up and trying to like do all this stuff. And I texted a bunch of my friends, and then I immediately regretted it because I realized that this is not a finished product. This is a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a huge risk involved.
Yeah, you're right.
And so like for me to put my friends in an uncomfortable position of like, hey, do you want to be my friend and support me and push this thing out? It kind of like, I don't know that I want that pressure.
If it was, if I did a Kickstarter and I asked you the same question, like, if you put yourself in their shoes, like,
I would probably, if you did a Kickstarter and you're like, I got this product, I would be like, Dave, I love you, but it's a Kickstarter, and if you go belly up on it and I sell my audience and I get them to back you, and then you end up going belly up, now I look like a jerk.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so this week I like retext all my friends and I was like, no one's doing a video on it. Like I don't want any of that. Like this is all 100% Make Art Now. And like we can talk in the fall when I physically have something. And like if it actually, like if I pull it off and you physically get mailed a box, then we can talk about all that stuff. But
Sure.
I don't know. It's definitely better that way because I would much rather have the risk myself. And
I guess that's what this is then, is we are announcing the Kickstarter. We're not endorsing the product because it's not out yet. So
right, totally. I mean, it's kind of funny, like the amount of Kickstarters that go belly up. Like they don't, you know what? In my research, a lot of the reasons why they aren't successful is not because of the product. It's because they didn't charge enough for international shipping.
oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
So they end up they get bit by the shipping that they have to pay out of pocket.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and you think about it, it's one of those,
especially
it's
your
one of those
product.
areas of, it's one of those areas of consumerism that we kind of take for granted, like Amazon, you know, Prime, free shipping, B&H, free next day air. Like we just get so much things shipped to us, and it's part of like the deal of us, you know, shopping at these businesses. But when it comes to like creating your own and you don't have that kind of logistics or that like shipping export, you know, workflow, you're getting hit with all these crazy costs of, you know, international shipping and trying to figure out what that is. It definitely takes a huge chunk out of the margin. And so it's funny, like that's the number one reason why these companies like the Kickstarter just doesn't happen.
That's interesting. I've never, I didn't even think about that, especially your product. It's so heavy, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, expensive. It's 35 pounds, and the ship box is going to be like 36 by 15 by 15. So, you know, it's not a small box at all.
Yeah, totally. Can we talk about your product? Just give me in a nutshell what it is for somebody who's never even heard of it, and this is the first time they're hearing about it.
So the Orbit is it's a ceiling mounted camera dolly. So essentially, if you have a studio or if you have a home office and you are able to mount something into your ceiling, you can take a base plate and you just need to hit the stud twice. You can hit the stud, you know, with the base plate, and you can then dangle this motor. And the motor is very precise. It's very powerful. It has a variety of speeds. It can go as slow as 1 RPM a month, or it can go as fast as 35 RPMs. Now, we're not going to allow it to go 35. We're going to top it out at around 10 or 15 because of just how much inertia, you know, spinning around a 7-pound camera can be at like 35 RPM. That could probably kill somebody. But essentially, it allows, instead of like imagine a time lapse motor where the camera is spinning out and it films the world outside. This is now stretched out on a boom arm, and the camera is pointed inward. So essentially, it makes you now the center of its orbit, and you can put yourself there. You can put products there. It solves a lot of problems, a lot of basic problems that YouTubers have, which is, how do I film myself in an interesting way? How do I maybe get a very smooth gimbal shot of this product without losing focus or having it go out of frame? How do I, you know, get that second shooter, give me another angle that I can cut from, you know? So there's a lot of use cases for it, which
I can see it. So I imagine already like myself using it even in a almost a live stream setup where I have a computer and a desk and it's dangling right above me, and you can actually restrict the amount of the circumference, if you will, of the move. So I could just do a 180, you know, and have it loop back and forth, right? So it kind of functions as a curved dolly shot, not a full 360 as well. So you can get creative with it. And imagine a live streamer with a moving shot, and there's no tracks involved. The footprint of it in terms of in your set is very minimal because it's hanging from the ceiling, and you have nothing, you know, as it's moving, you're not seeing the other arm because you've designed it in such a way that the counterweight is actually out of the shot, which is just a brilliant invention and design. I'm interrupting this video podcast to ask you guys to please subscribe down below, enable the bell notification, and maybe even leave a comment on this video, something that stood out to you so far or something later on in this episode that you really enjoyed. All those types of little things that I know are kind of annoying to hear on a podcast interview make this channel grow and put it out there for more people. It also helps me. So if you enjoy this show, you enjoy the free content that we're doing here, please enable the bell notification and subscribe. All right, let's go back to my conversation with Josh. I think a lot of people hearing this may think, well, there's already plenty of like motion control rigs out there with motors similar to this. What makes this different?
I've seen this before. When I first came up with it, I wasn't inspired by anything. I purely did come up with it. Yeah. But like parallel thinking exists, and so there's definitely other similar like homemade DIY rigs out there. But this is the first time that it's been brought to market where someone who's not handy with their hands, who doesn't know or have a time-lapse motor and doesn't know how to mount stuff, like this is a all in complete one package, and it comes with lighting too. So that's the other good thing, is it solves some lighting aspects of it.
I was referring to what you told me on the phone the other day about how if you were to use a time-lapse motor, that's what people listening may think, well, why don't you just use a time-lapse motor upside down? And the reason for that is a lot of reasons. Can you tell us why you would want this over that? It's designed to be upside down.
Yeah, so you can 100% use a time-lapse motor. And I think for people that can't afford, our product, and they can't wait for it to be in B&H and come down in price a little bit, because Kickstarter prices have to be a little bit higher just by nature. If you want us to succeed, you have to the trade-off is you're getting the product earlier and sooner than anyone else. And so you have to pay a little bit more for that. But for anyone that's going to build it themselves, that's what I did. My first prototype that I used for, almost a year was made with a time-lapse motor. Now, the trade-off is that, you have a motor, and who knows what the motor constraints are, like the mounting mechanism. It was designed to hold a camera down, not to hold a camera up. So every time that I was using the, my little first prototype, it was always kind of like a question mark. I was like, is it going to fall on my head this time or what? You know what I mean? That was always in the back of my mind. And so, when we were coming up with this motor and I had the list of requirements of what I wanted, one of them was like extra strong bearings for the axial load so that it could actually hold a significant amount of weight safely, and that you could overload it and you don't have to worry about the camera or the whole boom falling off and hitting your talent or breaking your neck or whatever,
So what is the payload right now with the prototypes that you have?
So the actual motor itself for the gears at top speed is about 30 pounds. Mm-hmm. So it could do 35 RPM with 30 pounds of weight, which is,
wow.
The motor itself, when you compare the motor that I have compared to other time-lapse motors, it's like 6 times the size and weight. It's massive. This would not be a good product to sell as a portable time-lapse motor because of its size and weight, but in terms of like safety and speed and variety, it's stealthy quiet up to 3 RPM. So any of those slow moving shots that you would need for an interview, where you need that second, you can't hear it at all, like nothing. And then after 3 RPM, the gears kick in and you can definitely hear some vibration and some noise. And, but like when you're using fast shots, you're probably shooting slow-mo. You're probably not recording audio anyway. So that was kind of a fair trade-off for me.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what people do with it because the possibilities are really endless with your creativity. You can watch Anamorphia 2 and some of your films and see what you've used it for as a solo performer, but I already see like Daniel Schiffer using it for really cool slow-mo product shots and
Dude,
all
he's
sorts of cool
actually,
stuff.
you know, what's funny is he's actually one of the first, I think he was the first YouTuber pal of mine to hit me up and he's like, I want this.
Oh yeah,
Like, when can you get me one of these?
he
And I
was
was like, dude, as soon as I can, you know, as soon as I get these prototypes
I think
made. So
there might be a large market of people who want that high speed product shot thing, like what you can do with those robotic arm things. But this is so much cheaper than getting a robotic system, you know? So,
yeah, it's so much cheaper. And because you're only dealing with one axis,
mhm.
it's a lot easier. Like those robot, you know, what people don't understand is with the big robot arms, you have normally when those rent out, they rent out with a technician. So you're paying, you know, $1,000 a day for the robot arm, but then you're also paying $750 a day for the technician to come because he knows how to control it and make the keyframes and the speed and make sure that you don't hurt yourself.
Yeah.
It's a huge learning curve. And so with this, you know, the motor goes one of two directions. It goes left or it goes clockwise or counterclockwise. And there's a laser, and the laser can tell you where the dead center is. So you put the object.
A laser.
It's got freaking laser beams, and it tells you exactly where the dead center is. So you can put the object there, and
Beautiful.
and then it'll do a perfect orbit around the object. So whether that's a product or a human or whatnot, it's very, very, very simple. And so I think the end goal is I see a future where a lot more of the content is being created by individuals like us, and it's less of these big budget Marvel, you know, superhero films, and more of like individuals who are telling their story and or live stream entertainment. Like I just see a future in that. So I think the end goal is getting this into people's homes and into their studios, and then maybe providing them some tips on how they can be better content creators, you know, giving them some extra tools. Like, I think I might start going into teaching some acting, actually.
Oh, very cool. I think that would.
Yeah, it's been something I've been thinking about for a while. I haven't done it because I never felt accomplished as an actor. Like, I felt like, you know, that adage, like, oh, those who can't act teach, you know?
Yeah.
It's so terrible. It's
Those
not
who
even
can't
true.
Teach Jim. That's what.
Yeah, right.
I always remember that from School of Rock. Those who can't do teach, and those who can't teach Jim.
But you know what? Like, there's so much in the acting world that I've learned that helps in storytelling, you know, and the more that I, you know, with doing Anamorphia and Anamorphia 2, aside from it being like a huge acting flex, like a huge workout for me, I learned so much in storytelling through the acting, and I actually understood why I never made it anywhere as an actor, like 100%, because the craft of acting is not actually acting. The craft of acting is storytelling. And can you and the director line up the vision so that you can be that vision for the director and you can be true to the story? You know what I mean? So it's no longer about the choices that you would make as an actor or saying the lines this way or that way. It's now like what's true for the character and what's true for the story. And I never had that revelation until, you know, doing Anamorphia.
Was that something that you struggled with in your early days then? Not lining up with the director?
No, my biggest struggle was the audition process. I did some decent work in acting class and, you know, self-tapes and that kind of thing. And like little projects that I've done. But the moment I walked into an audition room, like my personality went out the window. Like I was completely lobotomized, you know, so I was so nervous, and it was very, very hard to do any of the stuff that I was trained to do. And I couldn't get over it. It was like, dude, I tried everything. I tried hypnosis. I tried medication. I tried therapy, meditation. I honestly, everything. And I just couldn't get over the nerves. It's a different type of competition nerves that comes up when you get into it. I don't know if anyone's ever been in the audition process. Man, it is awful. There is nothing redeeming about it. Like, you go in there and the guy to your left looks exactly like you, and the guy to your right looks kind of like you but taller, and like everyone's thinking the same thing, which is like, man, I hope you don't get this. You know what I mean? Like everyone is, because there's only one role that they're casting at a time. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of you guys is gonna get it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, something about that whole process bred a lot of competition in me.
Yeah.
And
is that why you fell in love with YouTube? Because you create your own career path by doing it.
I fell in love with, I guess, the autonomy of YouTube. And I think maybe I have like a slight little like vendetta against Hollywood, you know what I mean? But it's not Hollywood's fault. It's just the whole competition and audition process is, I think, flawed. I mean, look, there are so many talented actors out there that say the same thing, that their careers never took off until it was offer only. Offer only is basically when the director's like, I've seen enough of your work where just let's send this guy an offer. And if he likes the script, he's in. No audition.
Yeah, I've heard plenty of interviews with actors, and they seem to all hate it. So,
it's off. It's the worst part.
It has nothing to do with the actual job too. Like it seems so out of place sometimes compared to
I mean, look, there's definitely a technique involved, but like if I were to go relive some of the auditions that I had done in the past, if I were to go in tomorrow, let's say my life depended on it, I had to go in and I had to give an audition. Instead, like back when I was going to auditions, I would try my hardest to memorize the lines, get off book, and then I would do all the actual real homework, like personalizations, backstory, moment before, all that stuff, right? My eye lines are a real big part of it. Like, where are you looking? Are there multiple people in the scene, right? So you do all of that work before, and then you go in there, and there's not 4 people in the room, even though there's 4 people in the scene. There's a casting director in the back of the room. There's a camera, and then there's a casting assistant off to the side. And so you got to like create all of this like out of thin air
in your head.
And so half the time you're like wondering, well, like, do I play this to the 4 other people that aren't there? Like, there's just so many unknowns, right?
Yeah. Yep.
If I were to redo it now, what I would do is I would just basically memorize as much as I could to get off book, to just get it like by rote, and then throw all of that away and then just try to be 100% real Josh to the reader. So whatever that they're giving me, if they're giving me nothing, like there's a way you could react to that, and just try to focus on making the conversation real and invested and have vitality.
Yeah.
And that's really, really hard to do, but it's something that I think I had too much other stuff going on back in the old days of trying to like figure out the scene and the hook and all this crazy shit. Like I would just throw all of that stuff away and just be like, the goal should be go in the room. If they believe you're a real person and that this doesn't sound like acting, then you stand a much better you stand a much better chance of getting the job than if you acted it perfectly, but you don't feel like an authentic individual. You know what I mean? It feels like an actor doing a scene. You fail.
Do you think YouTube, like if you're on YouTube and you are a quote YouTuber, are you an actor?
100%. 100%. I mean, how long did it take for you to get comfortable on camera? Do you remember when you first started?
It's not apples to apples because I was a magician for 6 years, so it was pretty easy for me. But that's from 6 years of performing on stages. So I mean, I remember when I first launched the channel, even coming from the acting background, I remember it taking a bunch of performances. It took me a bunch of line readings just to get where I liked what I said, and I wasn't all choked up like in my throat. You know what I mean? I didn't feel like super it took a while for my personality to come through. And so Absolutely. I think YouTubers with the right
coach with a good acting coach that can tell them, like, can really teach them story and tell them like why the scene is happening and what's the subtext, you know, if they're not too keen on like filmmaking or storytelling, I think they have a really good chance of being actors. Because then at that point, it's just being like, how can we get you to be authentic and your normal, bubbly, personal self? And a lot of that is just the nerves of being on camera.
Yeah, just stage time. You gotta keep hitting record over and over.
Exactly. And then the other muscle that I think is also worked out being a YouTuber is line memorization. You know, how many times are you looking at your copy and you're like, I gotta like memorize these 9 things about the DJI. You know,
24.2 megapixel sensor.
Yeah, exactly. It's all this. These are really like technical terms are hard to memorize sometimes. Yeah. You know. I'm actually really hopeful. I think that I could foresee that a future that we go down where more content creators are writing, shooting, acting, and editing and just producing their own films. And they're not bad films, you know.
What's your future? What are you looking forward to right now on your channel? I mean, we started this conversation off kind of talking about, you know, the struggles of being in this gear space. Now you've launched this product. Where are you at right now? I know it's a big question because I know I'm kind of stuck in the middle right now myself.
I think what I want to, you know, when I started the channel, again, it was like living in the shadow of like super successful YouTubers who had meteoric growth. And I think I had to make peace with that and be like, what's my intention of my channel is my intention of the channel is not to grow it as fast as I can. My intention is that I want to learn something every single episode and really get a sense of mastery. Like, can you become a Renaissance man? You know what I mean? What they call a autodidact polymath, right? Someone who basically has a worldwide experience, and every time they attempt something, they go in on the deep dive, they learn even more, and then by the end of that little thesis, they now take that and it now compounds with the rest of their world theory, and it helps them on the next thing, right? So I think I've extracted everything that I want out of the tech space. I think my goal was to make the relationships that I want for filmmaking, to you know, build up a fan base of like, you know, ardent supporters that love my films. I think I've done that. And now I think it's time for me to expand my world again. And so I think I'm going to get into more DIY builds. I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to learn
you have a great
coding
aesthetic for that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to learn coding and more of mechanical engineering, and really start cracking open creativity on building things. I think that's probably where I'm going next.
And then you entered into the world that I've been in now for 3 years of fatherhood, and that is a whole new stage for a man to kind of enter into. How has that been for you, and how does that change your trajectory for your career?
You know, I'll tell you the most I guess the most honest thing that I've learned about myself is that when I look at my son and I think about what I want to leave on this world, I haven't actually been teaching a lot. In my channel, I've been a little selfish, like with my exploration and learning everything that I want to learn. And I haven't actually given the breadcrumb. I haven't been leaving enough breadcrumbs for others to follow. And that was a revelation that came to me only like maybe a month ago, when I was having this brain trip of like, maybe what if I pretended that these episodes I was leaving for my son? You know what I mean?
Wow. Oh, that's powerful. Yeah.
Right? And so like, or if something happened to me and he was trying to learn who his father was, and all he had is like these 50 something episodes. And I was like, wow, I haven't really been doing these episodes for him or for any future generation. I've just been doing them for me, because again, the motive was never to grow the channel. The motive was for me to extract everything that I wanted to. And it's kind of a selfish journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the latest thing that's been rolling around. I know we're going super deep here.
That's deep. I love that. I think you're
Super
right.
deep.
I got into YouTube to get out of, I had a job that I really hated and I just wanted to have a creative outlet. So for me, it was just, this is what I love to do. And then it became my job for 3 years. And I was like, okay, now what, So
See, and I totally relate to that. And I think I think for me, I think that's what I started out with. And then it morphed, and it's almost like a drug. Like,
yeah, it is.
it's like the gateway drug, and now what I'm into is the challenge. Like like I'm only happy if I win, but like only by like a little. Like I have to almost lose and maybe like lose a finger in the process, but I won. I lost a finger, but I won. Then that's like what I'm after.
It gives you that fire and that passion that is
exactly.
crucial.
Dude, you know what's funny is you listen to
Gary Vee?
Charles Bukowski?
Okay. I thought you were going to say Gary Vee, because Gary Vee is all about the kind of loser, like being the underdog. But no, I haven't heard of him. No, actually.
Charles Bukowski, famous poet. He's got a couple of really good poems, but you should listen to Roll the Dice by Charles Bukowski. And this one has been quoted by everybody. Like Joe Rogan quotes him, But essentially, it's like, if you're going to go for it, go all the way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, don't even try.
That's right. Absolutely. I think we need to end on that. That's like a perfect way to end it. It's so heartfelt and authentic, and it's definitely where we are. I get comments all the time on this podcast. It's like, all right, Dave's talking about being a dad again, but it's whatever.
It
changes everything.
It does.
My whole career could just go away. I could work at Walmart tomorrow. I wouldn't even care, as long as my boys are taken care of. So it's funny how the priorities shift so much almost instantaneously. Although for me, it took me a couple of months to kind of everybody's like, oh, your life is going to change when you hold your baby for the first time. But the very first child, I was like, what is this? This is like an alien creature. I don't have any connection to it, because my wife was the one that birthed the thing and carried the boy. I'm just like, what's my role? And then it, after a couple of months of connecting with him, then that's when it started to happen. And then my second born, now it's like, as soon as he was born, I had that connection, because I already kind of learned that with the first one. So,
dude, I'll tell you something before we go. I'm not really precious about any footage at all. Mm-hmm. Like my mentality is that I'll shoot something and I can always just go back and reshoot it.
Yeah.
But I've never ever misplaced footage ever. It's just like, it goes on the hard drive. I've never lost a single clip. I filmed my son's birth, the most incredible footage.
Uh-huh.
And because I was so sleep deprived, I think I forgot to copy it onto the hard drive, and I think I formatted it.
Oh my gosh.
My wife and I watched the playback on the camera once, and then it was gone. We never saw it again. The most incredible footage I've ever shot in my life.
Oh,
because we didn't know it was a boy or a girl. Mm-hmm. And so as soone as they called out, the nurse took our son, and it was like, it's a boy. And so I immediately panned over to my wife with the camera, and I got her expression of her reacting off of me, because she knew I wanted a boy, but I'd be happy with a girl, but it's a guy thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so she was reacting off of me, and I filmed her expression of that.
Uh-huh.
And it was the most honest, truthful thing I've ever filmed in my life. Gone.
It's in your head. It's in your mind.
Right? And yeah, it's all in here. And God, I've never felt heartbreak like that before with footage. And I was just gutted for several weeks, but I'm glad that we got to watch it at least once.
I'm the same way though with footage. I actually always deleted my YouTube content a week after I shoot it, because I'm like, I only need the export. I'm never going to use this again. I know some people are more annoying with that, but with my filming of my kids, I've set up things where I've got multiple backups, and I'm thinking about getting a NAS system as well for all that. So
you're getting a nitrous?
A nitrous? What's it called? NAS? NAS? Isn't it? What's a nitrous?
I don't. I obviously don't have one of those.
It's just like it's like a server, a home server system that has like multiple copies of it. But I've been really obsessive with it because I just don't want to lose it. But I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks.
It's gone.
I had my Leica. I had a Leica M3 with some black and white film. I took pictures of my second born with, and that was one of the cameras that the guy stole from me. And so that film was in the camera still. So I did lose that. So that sucks. But
did you ever? Whatever came of that? Did you ever?
Well, this week, dude, literally on Tuesday, the sheriff called me and said, "Hey, does this name ring any bells to you?" I was like, "Yeah, that's the name of the guy that stole my stuff." He's like, "Well, turns out he's been in jail for like 4 months now, and I'm just trying to close up this report, and now I'm going to tack that on." And, you know, he was about to go into probation, but he's staying in there. So justice has been served. But as far as my gear goes, I haven't, recouped it. I'm going to talk to them about figuring out, what I could do from here. But now that he's been caught, but yeah, no fun. Everybody insure your equipment. That's my biggest lesson. Have good gear insurance. So it is what it is.
All right. Well, anything else you want to touch on?
I mean, we could go for hours probably, but I know you got things and I got things, so I don't want to keep you. But everybody go check out Joshio's channel, Make Art Now. Have you considered changing the name, or are you still sticking with Make Art Now forever?
Yeah,
because I search Josh Yo on YouTube, and your channel pops up automatically anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
No, I'm not gonna change it. I think I recorded when I first started the channel. My intro was that it was like that. That's the thing about art, is that you commit to something and then you let it evolve and turn into something else.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's a little meta, but the process in which my channel evolves is the point of the channel, or at least the point of the channel name.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like, it holds me to standards as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very bold name. It's like, okay, well, are you making art? Let's see what this guy's got.
Those are instructions for you guys, not for me.
It's like, oh, it's called Make Art Now.
My instructions are like, make art every third Wednesday of every other month, and then like get it out there.
Make art every 5 months. Every time you have a baby, you make art. Well, Josh, it's a pleasure having you on again. If you want to listen to our first podcast, I'll link it in the show notes, where we kind of talk about your history as an actor, some of the funny stories about that, and then your journey in real estate. But this was a blast getting to hear the process of how you created Orbit. Everybody go check it out on Kickstarter. I'll have that in the description as well. Thanks again, Josh. You're a good friend.
Hey, dude,
I value.
Thank you so much for having me on here.
Absolutely, hang in there, dude. You're gonna crush it. I'm excited to see your future. So, and I mean, I'm saying this as if I'm never gonna speak to you again. I'll talk to you later.
Like, we're gonna talk after we're probably gonna cut recording and continue talking for an hour, and then we're like, damn, we should have shot that. The real conversation started.
If you've listened all the way to the end of this podcast and you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to the Golden Hour podcast on YouTube and leave a comment down below. What was something that stood out to you about my conversation with Josh? I'm excited to see what he does in the future. He mentioned a DIY channel. Maybe that'll be something new for him to explore. I'm excited to see that. Let me know what your thoughts are on the current space on YouTube. My last conversation with Gerald, which I'll link right here, we talk about kind of the struggles of the gear just getting to a place now where it's so good that it's kind of weird. Like, should we even review stuff anymore? I don't know. Leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. Watch the Gerald interview if you haven't already. Once again, I'm your host, Dave Mays. This is the Golden Hour Podcast, and we'll see you next week.